All right, I have 4:15. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Sam Martin, Martha Eldridge, and Rick Morgan's here. We had a work session this morning at 11 o'clock with the Sumner Brook regarding the Sumner Brook lease. We at 2 o'clock had a department head meeting, and at 3 o'clock we had a non-public session under 91A32C, which is a tax matter with our tax collector on payment arrangements for delinquent taxes, and under RSA 91A32D for acquisitions. I make a motion that we seal those minutes. Second. All in favor? Aye. Public input. Anybody? Yeah.
Okay. My name is Ann Martin, and I live on Comeau, number 3, Person Drive. Okay. And this is sort of in response to your last meeting where Jessica Williams spoke about things.
Okay.
All right, so this is in response to that. Susan, the woman she talked about, is my daughter.
Okay.
And I guess that talk that they were doing was ongoing through the years because there's supposed to be no swimming there at all. And the second thing that Jessica brought up was that Susan hadn't paid her taxes. Well, Susan is my daughter. She's not having to pay the taxes because she's my daughter. And my brother and I and my sister own the camp. Okay. So we're the ones that pay the taxes. And I checked with Kelly this morning. She said everything's paid up, so no problem there.
I don't think I heard her say that, but I'm not disputing it either. So.
Yeah.
I think she said she doesn't pay the taxes. I don't think she said that she didn't pay the taxes. I just think she looked and she couldn't find that she was responsible for the taxes.
Okay. All right, cleared that up. And according to the Fish and Game Department that owns the property, it's for boat access only, okay, and for people that want to fish on the shore. There's no swimming allowed, and it is posted in 3 places.
It is.
It is. Right. So we have a delegation here from Conner Pond, and we just want to show what an impact on the pond it would be to have that as a swimming hole, you know, for people to come, the public. It would just overwhelm the pond. And right now we have loons that nest there. There's also a little baby that was born a couple months ago. Someone just saw a moose swimming in the lake earlier. And all that wildlife is what we treasure, what we're trying to keep from getting ruined by having too many people come in and abuse the privilege of just, you know, being there at the lake. I wanted to ask you a question. I know this Conner Pond thing is on the last end of the docket there. Can we continue with that, or do we have to have everything at this point in time?
The way we break our meeting out is we start off with the public input so that if folks have something they just want to say and be able to leave, they don't have to sit through the Monday of the rest of the meeting. But we do a public input now where anybody is free to speak. Then we'll do the red folder. And at one point we'll discuss it again because it is on the agenda. And then we end with a public input for a second time around, so if anybody still has anything to say. So I feel free to go now. It doesn't have to wait till then, or however you choose to do it.
Before they get to that point, you can stand up and talk now.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Sir, you were the next one.
Hi, my name is Bill Martin, and I live at 3 First Place for a couple of weeks a year. And my residence is in Bend, Oregon. And I'd like to show how the allocation of funds for this boat ramp have ties to it. There's rules that have to follow with the money that came with it.
Can you speak up, please? I can't hear you.
Sure. Just go like that. just prior to 2001, Beulah and Rodney White put the Connor Pond track that they had up for sale. And I don't know how long it was up for sale before the Fish and Game showed an interest in it and had an agreement to purchase with the Whites. And you can correct me if I screw this up. The Fish and Game, I guess, didn't have enough money. They had some monies from the Federal Fish and Game, Wildlife and Sport Reserve that was given to the Fish and Game, and also the $5 boat registration for motorboats was also given to them to make this purchase, plus state funds in the Fish and Game anyways. They didn't have enough money, is the way I see it, to buy it outright, and they didn't need that full 5 acres. And so Jim Rusak was given offered to buy half of it. There was some negotiation over how much of it he would buy. And he said he could buy half, and then they could buy half. Then he had concerns about how the area would be used. So he also had financial interest in how the land would be used and whether there'd be public access or not. The so in 2007, a deal was made where the Fish and Game bought their track and Rusak bought his. And then a series of public meetings started. It was an open house. It wasn't a formal thing like this. They just had desks around and you went up and talked to them. And in that they explained how they were going to develop the boat ramp and provide access. There was never an attempt to deny people from accessing the lake. It was that the area would not be developed as a swimming beach. It was kind of like a promise, the way we understood it, because that takes another whole separate rule. So the boat shop access was the main rules that governed how the area would be used. And in that it said no swimming. Then I live right next to that lot, and I paid taxes on my property that in 14 years is greater than the sum the Fish and Game paid to buy the land. So I think I have some voice in the matter.
You have as much voice as any resident, but go ahead.
Okay, well, that's my opinion too, is that I'd like to see it used for the intent of the money that was spent to purchase it.
Okay.
That's,
I think you were next.
Can I speak from here?
Sure.
Okay.
Did you just speak up just so we all hear you?
Okay. I'll try. I called Fish and Game today. Sorry.
Name?
Oh, David Thurston. Yeah, excuse me, because I got half my teeth out. I'm waiting for my implants. And Freedom. I live in Freedom. I called Fish and Game this morning. I got a hold of a man named Rick Sink, and he's the head of the Facilities-Inland Division. And I told him the story of what happened, and he says, never should have happened. The game warden, or conservation officer, should have done what he should have done, is ticketed that lady for swimming in there. Because the rule says no swimming, and that's it. I mean, if it'd been anybody else, they'd have just gone to some other body of water swimming. If you want to protest, you can. But the point of the matter is, this guy's not going to drop the ball. But you can tell just by the way he talked. So if he has to pursue it further, he will. And that's all I got to say, but it is a start. There's no sense in going all out to try to get swimming negated in there when it's there already. It just has to be upheld. And it's up, I asked him, I said, well, who has the power to enforce that. And according to him, he says the game warden should have had that power to enforce it. And that would have been the end of it right there.
I don't know that it would be the end of it,
Well-
but that's the end of it.
Well, this thing's been going on for years. I've been up there collecting trash at times, and I've seen what goes on. I've seen the time when if somebody wanted to come in and fish on a Sunday, they wouldn't have parking spot anyway.
Right.
So maybe it's a good thing it's coming to a head.
Maybe.
But whatever.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ron.
Who's next? Anybody? Sure. You just tell us your name, that's all, where you're from.
Okay, my name is David Olean, and I have a place here in Ossipee. I love to fish on Connor Pond, and I have a little boat, and I have a little trailer, and I want to take the boat out of Connor Pond to go on other ponds in the area. But many days, it's impossible. You cannot back a trailer down there. I mean, I sort of have trouble backing up anyway, but that boat landing is very difficult because there are a lot of rocks in the water. And like I tried to land there yesterday, and there was a 2-year-old kid playing right at the base of the launch with his toys in the water. And there was a 4-year-old next to him, and then 2 10-year-olds who were just out. None of them were looking at me. And I have a little boat with an electric motor, and I'm trying to avoid all the rocks because there are a lot of rocks there. It was very dangerous, and they wouldn't move. They didn't think, they don't understand because they're like 2 and 4. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And some days are worse than others. I've seen people pull in there and inflate a relaxation station and float it 20 feet off the boat landing and party and have coolers floating in the water and drinking beer. And I don't know what a fisherman couldn't use it at that time because there are just too many people swimming. Okay. Last night there were 15 people swimming and 2 dogs. And it's very unsafe for anyone who's a boater or a fisherman to try to come in there with all the little, and it's mostly little kids, and they are just not old enough to be, you know, cognizant of the dangers that are involved. Okay. So that's my point. I think it's a very dangerous thing to have people fishing, or excuse me, to have people swimming there, and it also can be a problem with sanitary facilities. There are no sanitary facilities, and I see where people go into the bushes, and I've picked up diapers and everything else. It's not what you want to have happen to land. It's just having people there swimming all day is just a recipe for disaster from an ecological standpoint and from a safety standpoint. Okay, that's my point. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? We're still in public input, so if anybody has anything on any subject, please.
Oh. Hi, Marie McConaughey here in Center Ross. We got a letter on the Conservation Board. We had a meeting last week and about the Scenic overlook and cleaning up the Scenic overlook. And I'm assuming that this letter is what you, Brad, had gave to you last Monday. I wasn't at last Monday's meeting.
We didn't have a meeting last month.
Oh, all right. Okay. So
that's the letter that we have.
that's the letter that you have, yeah, that state that it was gonna take 2 to 3 trucks, 2 laborers, chainsaws, to complete the necessary work down there. Is what the letter states.
That's what it would take.
That's what it would
Yes.
take.
Ellen was out after our meeting, so, and I just wasn't able to get here today to talk to Ellen. But what we discussed in the meeting hasn't been discussed with Ellen yet. About
No,
getting
that's,
the
which is
work.
fine,
Okay.
which is fine, but I'm just saying, because I know that the previous board has gone down to clean up that area in the past, with Ralph Buchanan. He has that little apparatus that he made for his excavator to pull out the trees. And they said it only takes a half a day with the board members, with the previous board, to clean that up. I just don't know where Brad came up with the 2 to 3 days of cleaning the area up.
Oh, there's clearly a disconnect.
I wasn't Alan, completely confused.
Yeah, right, yeah, because there's two things happening.
Okay.
We have the original thing in the fall. The initial thought for the Scenic overlook was to do a quick cleanup, the annual cleanup of it, basically, and that was going to go out the bid to have people come and pull those trees out. I was doing research with you guys and Brad into figuring out how to make that have the maintenance easier on it.
Right.
And I have a feeling this is a letter mixed with both of that in mind. Because the 3 to 4 days was what Brad and I were discussing about on how long it would take with an excavator to pull stumps and grade that area out.
Yeah.
I think that's what that's meant for.
I guess that was my question. Did you speak with Brad on the Windows project? And did he say just to clean up the brush, it would take 3 to 4 days? Or is that doing more work down there? You know?
The way that I thought it was left, you know, you can have to correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The way I thought it was left was that the Conservation Commission was going to pay to have all of the trees removed this year. And then we would, next year, look at grassing it in so that it didn't become so high maintenance.
Well, that's the information I was looking to get to bring back to the board.
Okay.
What happened at the meeting was we're going to go with the initial plan in the fall, that we had last fall, was to put it out the bid, get it done so it looks nice quickly initially right now. So what you have ready to go out somewhere on your desk, Ellen, from last year's bid sheet, I was going to come talk to you about having that done. But
Tim Otterbach did a scope of work. Is that what you're referring
yes.
to? Okay.
You should have a piece of paper with it.
I do.
So we're going to ask that you do that. What we were talking about having done, that whole changing the maintenance thing, that has been opted to talk about it more at the next meeting. So that's been tabled for now.
They're not mutually exclusive anyway.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you're
So
looking
we're
for us
just
to go ahead and just put out that RFP that we had last fall.
correct. That's what we're looking to do right now.
That request for,
To get it cleaned up, and we're going to have more discussion about where I was heading with you and Brad for doing less maintenance there.
and that's fine. I make a motion that we put out the bid, the scope of work that we agreed upon last fall on the Windows property.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Well, let's get that out and get that started. And then Plan B, I think, does make an awful lot of sense after you pull those stumps out to grass it, do something so that it be, otherwise you're going to be doing this every 4 or 5 years. Okay.
Yeah, that answers my question, I guess, what I was thinking.
One down.
I'm so glad I just happened to walk in for that.
Thanks.
Anybody else on the phone, people?
Yeah, my name's Brian Barry. I filed for an abatement earlier this year,
Okay.
denied, and that's not a problem, but in the letter, it says that my neighbor's unsightly yard has brought my property value down, but my assessment went up. Because I had put a new roof on and screened my porch, but nothing's been changed in my house since 2004 when I built it.
Okay. Can you give Ellen a copy of that?
Yep.
Ellen, will you have our assessor look at that and give us some
It
information?
says I had asphalt shingles, never had. Same roof I put on in 2004. My open deck, I put a screen on one end, it's still open. It's never changed in 9 years. And now they say it has. My assessment went up. And I didn't know if you could answer another question real quick for me.
Control.
You gotta have at least 25 feet clearance to build on a piece of property, correct, on the line? Without
It depends on,
easements?
it depends on the,
Okay.
it depends
Is there
on
a
the zone.
rule about how close someone can store a bunch of junk to my property line?
The quick answer is sadly no. I
I
don't
mean,
think so.
I'm within 2 feet of the junk driving in my driveway. There's times when I have to drive around it. It's getting to the point where I'm gonna get a loader, I'm gonna move it for them. But I've made a few phone calls, they're gonna look at it, nothing's happened.
Two different things. You have Todd address the assessment issue. If you leave that with her, we'll get you an answer, we'll get back to you.
Okay.
On the second issue, that's an issue for the building inspector, and
Well,
that's the...
he did, I called him earlier this spring, he said he was gonna take a ride over. I said, you pull in my driveway and you'll see what the problem is. He said, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Never heard a word.
All right. We'll have him look at it and get back to us.
I just didn't know if there was a rule that had to be that close to the line. I mean, his property,
The
his
sad
property
but true
line
thing-
goes right to the driveway. My property line goes to the driveway, but I have it right away in my deed. They do not. I can stop them from going in their own basement.
Yeah.
They're using it and they just back up top and just throw the junk out. And it's quite an eyesore.
All I can tell you is we'll look at it, the sad but true, I think, is you can't stop them from dumping certain things.
Okay.
Now, if it's considered hazardous or whatever, it comes in under the health inspection rules, which is a very different ballgame.
I understand
So,
that.
part of it will depend on exactly what it is that's there.
Okay.
Past that, I don't know.
Other than that,
I
there's not a lot I can do about it.
well, I don't know that. And let us check into it and we will get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay? Somebody? Ma'am?
I'm back.
Okay.
Jessica Williams, Ossipee. Little Pond brought a lot of people to its whole meeting, so thank you all for coming. I want to just discuss a couple of things. First thing, I did attend the DES meeting at the invitation of Councilor Kenny last week, and he's not here to report on that, but it was regarding White Pond. White Pond, there's some sort of confusion as to who is responsible for White Pond. Is it the state and is it the town? And the state actually owns White Pond. It's DOT that owns White Pond. But in some bylaws from 1967 or something, it says that the town is responsible for maintaining that boat ramp. So I'll just leave that there. I'm sure they'll be contacting you. Maybe Councilor Kenny will fill you in on the rest of that. As for
If I could just jump in there real
Yes,
quick,
sir.
because that does leave. We know from our research that the state of New Hampshire owned the White Pond access right along.
Right.
All of a sudden, and we've heard from Councilor Kenny,
Okay.
it is the position of the state agency that at some point in the early 1960s, the town of Ossipee became responsible for that, yet they have been unable to produce any memo, letter, note, or otherwise that makes the town of Ossipee responsible for it. What brought this to a head was because we, trying to be good stewards, tried to do some work on the boat ramp, even though it's not ours, and the next thing you know, all hell's breaking loose and DES is hollering and screaming and wanting us to do permits, et cetera, et cetera. So it is our belief that it is still owned by the state of New Hampshire. And until they can provide something that shows that it was somehow conveyed to Ossipee, it's not our responsibility. If they wanted to convey it to the town of Ossipee tomorrow, I think we could have that discussion and it might make some perfect sense. But right now, we're in a position where we cannot maintain something that's not ours. So,
Gotcha.
if that helps at all.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was, the meeting was ended with it still being very convoluted and no one really knowing exactly who owns what. But that brings us to public waters, because White Pond is considered a public water. And I want everyone here to understand that the one thing is not debatable in this room, and is what is the definition of a public body of water. And if anyone is curious, and I'm happy to make copies, the state defines public body of water. All natural bodies of fresh water situated entirely in the state, having an area of 10 acres or more, are state-owned public waters and are held in trust by the state for public use. And no corporation or individual shall have or exercise any such body of water, any rights or privileges not common to all citizens of this state, provided, however, the state retains an existing jurisdiction over those bodies of water. Okay, so we can all agree that the water is public, but now we want to debate over who has jurisdiction over the water, and that's fine. Fish and Game does have jurisdiction over the boat launch. Fish and Game does not have jurisdiction over my behavior in the water. There's a difference. I can sing, I can swim, I can float. I can do whatever I want in that water as long as it's not breaking any laws, and I'm not breaking any laws by swimming. In fact, let's talk about swimming, because the federal government and our state, several agencies in our state, define swimming as a reasonable, lawful use of the public body of water. Lawful, reasonable use of a public body of water. Now, let's talk about the boat access program, because yes, I also did my research, and I really appreciate anyone in this room first that cleans up when they don't have to. Thank you. I'm going to thank you for that, because I also do the same, and we should continue to do that. Second, anyone that takes time out of their day to do research regarding their rights, thank you for doing that also, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about Fish and Game's funding. New Hampshire Fish and Game says they're self-funded. Do you choose to believe that? That's up to you. I chose to do the research. Fish and Game is not self-funded. Fish and Game is increasingly taking money out of our state's general fund. That means taxes paid by Ellen, Jake, Ash, myself, the general fund. I don't know about you, but I pay my taxes. I pay my business taxes, my employees' taxes, and I feel like I have the right to know what my money is being spent on. So Fish and Game is taking our money, and they're spending it to enforce rules, rescue people, do all sorts of things that are to a public benefit. I have no problem with Fish and Game. I think they do wonderful work in many ways. But this public access program is funded by federal taxes on, yes, you're correct, boat registrations, fuel, ammunition, fishing tackle, etc. Okay? This money is not purely coming from boat registrations, as you may believe. It's not. And increasingly, hunting licenses and fishing licenses, Fish and Game is selling fewer and fewer of those, and is really running into some issues in terms of funding their agency. So they're asking the state for money. This specific program that funded the boat access is funded as a requirement, because it's a federal act. The name of it is the Dingell-Johnson Sport Fish Restoration Act. So we have those boating fees. So Fish and Game says only people that pay can play. Okay. Fish and Game, I went to the meeting that says the people that pay, they pay their fair share, they should have priority to use this facility. And I understand that. We want people with fishing boats to be able to access a body of water for fishing. I agree with that. But I also disagree with some of the language in the actual grant. I'm going to finish, and then I'll answer questions if you have questions, okay? In the grant, it says that the primary use of the facility that is being improved has to be fishing or boating. It also includes language that says something like "and access." It doesn't say the sole purpose of those facilities are for boats or fishing. It says the primary, which insinuates there's a secondary use, an incidental use of those facilities for public access to the water. New Hampshire Supreme Court, in I believe 2016, ruled in favor of a gentleman who was denied access to a public beach over the Wentworth by the Sea property, and they ruled that he's allowed to trespass or go over private property to reach the seashore, because the public trust doctrine, which is based in Roman law, English law, predates our Constitution, says that the people have the right to the water. And that still holds today. So we're all here because we're arguing about what we're allowed to do in the water, how we're supposed to access the water, etc. So if swimming is a legal, lawful use of the water, the public access program was paid for by my tax dollars and your tax dollars. The issues I hear are littering and noise, and I agree with you, that's not being neighborly. We should be more neighborly. But I would say that the no swimming sign has no basis in law, and we'll talk about danger and safety in just a minute, and then I'll be quiet. So these boat funds that pay for these facilities, they don't pay for all of it. So that's and if you want to read more, I'm happy to give it to you. I'm not going to stand up here and talk all night, but our tax dollars go to paying for these places. So Last thing is safety. I hear a lot of people say, oh, the children might get hurt. All right, well that seems reasonable at first glance, but let's think about that a little bit more, and let's do some research. So, Department of Safety keeps records on all boating accidents and injuries in the state. So I thought that was probably a good place to start. I should go look at those records and see how many people from New Hampshire were hurt in boating accidents, because I want to know if maybe I'm crazy. Maybe people are getting hurt and I just don't know. So I looked. The answer is no. The answer is no. In fact, in 2005, I just took a sample year, 2005, 181 people died fishing. 18 died hunting, and 23 died while swimming. In fact, 51 people a year die from being struck by lightning. So you actually have a higher incidence or chance of being struck by lightning than you do drowning or dying at Connor Pond. I really don't think there's a public safety issue. In fact, in the water, when you're in a boat, it's your responsibility to a swimmer. And I called Marine Patrol and I wanted to confirm this with them. It is the boater's job to ensure any pedestrians or anyone else is kept safe. Now, if I'm being completely negligent, that's a different story. But I think for the gentleman entering the water with his boat to ask the children to move, that's his responsibility. And then it's the parents' responsibility to tell those kids to get out of the way. Lastly, what do we want to talk about? Are you Susan? Are you Susan? Because I want to, no, not you, behind you. Oh. No. Are you your name Susan?
No.
No, Susan was here, I thought, earlier, so you look sort of like Susan.
Her mother's here.
Okay. So, I think we should all make an effort to be neighborly, to keep our areas clean and beautiful. I would also ask the town of Ossipee to think twice about erecting any no swimming signs at White Pond. I know the sign has been taken down. I think we ought to think about the legal rights of the public when it comes to accessing water and what that really means. And let's continue the conversation. And until then, let's try to be nice to each other and keep Ossipee clean. Do you have any questions?
No. Hold on a second. First of all, this is not a public hearing in the
Right.
sense of, so your comments are to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes,
If
you.
you would like to comment to us, please do. If you want to say something in response to her, please do.
I'll go.
But I don't really want to get into the
Yeah.
asking questions back and forth. Man, you had your...
Just a point of information for the running of this meeting. My understanding was this is a line item on the agenda.
It is as well.
So how does public input and a line item on the agenda differ, or how are they similar?
It's pretty informal, but we start every meeting, and I said this before you came in, we start every meeting with a chance for the public to have comment, and it's free-ranging, it's open. We do that before we get into the mundane issuing of intent to cut and minutes and all of those things to give people that opportunity at the start of the meeting. On our agenda, and in addition to a whole bunch of other things, the Comeau Pond boat ramp / swimming is also on there, where people can comment. And again, at the end of the meeting, we'll have another public input where people can comment. So rather than you being made to sit here and listen to all of the rest of the business you may not be interested in, that's why we're having this discussion now, only because I've made the invitation. It's not us that started this. I will gladly take any comment that you might have, or you can wait till it comes up on the agenda.
I'm just trying to understand if it's
completely.
an agenda item, do we move it to the top of the agenda list? Do we talk, I think there are, I don't know if there's any rules
The
we
reason
follow.
why it's under the agenda as old business is because there's still an open item that the selectmen need to tend with. They voted at the last meeting to issue a letter to White Pond
Correct.
requesting
Connor Pond?
Connor Pond, yes, about the swimming. So that is still in their business folder to act on in the business portion of the meeting.
Okay, so that won't change.
Correct.
That was still, so any conversation that people would like, is there an opportunity when that line item comes up on the agenda for people to comment at that juncture?
Yes, but I don't know that you have any advantage to doing it right now in the public input. That's up to you.
Well, I'd just like to hear your personal discussion on it. That's
Sure.
And that's why when I read that it was on the agenda, I knew that you were going to discuss it. I didn't have any idea the last time that this topic was even going to be discussed because it was public input.
Correct.
So I think some of the people here today have come because they acquired an agenda and said, oh, the selectmen are going to talk about it, so we're going to come and talk about it.
And that's
So I was just a little confused. I do attend town meetings or selectmen's boards meetings back where I live in New Hampshire. I don't live in Ossipee. I just own property on Connor Pond.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to understand how we were going to do this.
Excuse me, could you identify yourself?
I am sorry. Yes, I am Lynn Hart, and I'm from Meredith, New Hampshire, but I own land on Connor Pond.
Okay. Anybody else on the public input? Ma'am.
My name is Carol Guggens, and I have property in Center Ossipee. When you look at a sign that says no swimming, do you violate that sign? Do you teach your children to violate that type of a sign? Or do you go about it in a different way?
That's a kind of a rhetorical question. I think I get your point, but
it's a words thing. You turn a word that says no, you turn it to on. And if you're educating children, how do they understand? If they go up to the sign that says no swimming, it's no swimming for them. It should be no biking because we want them safe. We want a lifeguard. We want them to have fun in the water. We don't want to deprive them. And maybe we need to find a swim area where we can have a lifeguard and make everyone welcome and feel safe.
interesting you should mention that, because we've been working diligently trying to get a beach on Ossipee Lake, and I hope you'll join us when we find one.
We will. We will, because I think it's important that children learn how to swim and that we promote that. And also, it's summertime, they're biking outside, and we want to promote that. But there are rules to promoting something. And when someone says no, we'll have everyone going through red lights and green lights because, you know, they weren't educated to know. I think the word no means no.
Okay. As I said, it's not ours to enforce. We made that very clear.
And who's responsible then?
It is owned by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department.
If there's an accident there, who's responsible? It's 5 miles in for the ambulance to come, and I don't.
It's the same, it would be the same.
It's the same as the fishermen, so
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily helps you. But as far as who's responsible for the property, it's definitely the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. Okay?
So, do we appeal to the Fish and Game to keep the sign up? How do we?
Right now, I don't think they have any intention of taking it down. Would be my guess. I mean, we sent them a letter. This is not a new discussion. Some of you think this is new, but we actually sent them a letter back in 2014, which is verbatim to the letter that we're proposing to send them now, which is asking them to relook at the ban on swimming at car top access points. That's the letter we sent them in 2014, and they declined to change it, and I don't have any reason to believe that they're going to change it now.
What is over, I've never been, what is over at Duncan Lake? Is there a swim area for people? Is there a lifeguard there?
There is a town, well, there's two things. There's a boat launch on Duncan Lake, and there is a town beach on Duncan Lake.
And the two are separate?
They are.
And that's a good thing?
I would say.
There's no one swimming at Ossipee off of 25 at that boat launch.
At which boat launch?
It's not favorable.
Well, that's in the channel. If that's the one
That's
that's
going
out.
into the road.
Yeah. But who's, you know, it just strikes me is that if you're trying to educate children, no should mean no. And if the parent goes in the water and the children are standing there, are you responsible for the children or not? In what the language of the sign says.
Okay. Thank you.
Amen.
Yes, I think Robert Lamont, I have
cabin on Common Pond. And I think people should have the opportunity to swim in open, free water, like was pointed out, as a principle of this country. And this town should be a principle anywhere. I've gone plenty of places where you can't go for a swim because there's no access. Everything's tied up by private property and you can't get to it. So there should be a town beach. I support you in that. And there should be a chance for children and babies and adults to have a place to swim. And Common Pond is great for swimming. I agree with the idea that we need to be civil to each other and polite. If somebody's being uncivil and polite, that's a different issue, and that needs to be addressed. There's ways to do that. It puts people in a tough situation when you don't have facilities at a place where people are going to swim, whether there's a sign or not. They're going to swim there, and they need to take their children. They need to go there and have a refreshing swim. So I think that's going to happen, whether it's a boat launch or not a boat launch, whether there's a beach or not a beach. And no sign is going to stop people. Plus, the sign, no is no. Actually, it's a good opportunity to have a discussion with your children about, well, the sign says no swimming, but we have a right by law to go swimming. So at what point do you have to not look at the sign and not go according to the sign when it's an unjust sign or unjust law or whatever? It's a good teaching moment for children and for adults. So I think immediately there is a problem though, because I can see where there might be some danger backing up. But it's a good suggestion to get out of your car and ask, can you please move out of the way? I don't want to see you get hurt. And ask the parents, can you please ask your children to move? Or that is also a responsibility of the parents. So it's a little bit of civility all around, which we need a lot more considering on the current climate in this world, in this country. So we do need a lot more civility, and there's a way to do it. Just be nice. And as far as facilities, whoever owns it, something's got to happen quickly. Whether it's the Ossipee, town of Ossipee, suing the state for not providing proper facilities. Fishermen have to go use facilities. How do we know who's going in the woods? Anybody that's going there using that has to do something if they need to do it. So let's get something out there as soon as possible and not be led around by the state or anybody who's dragging their feet.
Thank you. I do want to make one thing abundantly clear. This board is not encouraging anybody to break the rules. I understand your comments about protest, and on a personal level, I don't necessarily disagree with them. Having said that, the rule right now at Common Pond is no swimming. That is the rule. People choose to obey or disobey that rule at their own peril. We're not encouraging people to violate the rules. I have absolutely no problem with trying to change the rules to try to satisfy everybody's needs and wants and desires and rights. But we're not encouraging anybody. On the contrary, I would say we need to encourage people to abide by the rules. The best way to change is to change the rule if you don't like it. That's what we have to do with laws in the legislature, and that's what we should have to do with the fish and game rules. So we're not encouraging anybody to violate that. But that is not our area.
No, right, but I mean, they could solve the whole problem by enforcing that they start ticketing people, and it will clear up.
Let me tell you why it doesn't solve the problem. And this becomes an issue where, in this particular scenario that was relayed to us, a fish and game officer told people that they couldn't park out on Corner Pond Road and walk into the pond via the brook. If that, in fact, is accurate, I can guarantee you that it is not the job of the fish and game to enforce parking along town roads. Any water which will float a canoe is considered to be a navigable water and is open to the public. So again, I don't want to muddy this water, and I'll be very honest with you. I love Common Pond. It's one of my favorite places on earth. I don't want to see it overused. I don't think it's a great place for a public beach. I'm not advocating that in any way, shape, or form. What I think is going to happen, and this is being now pushed into a point where you may end up with a whole lot that you don't want, and that I don't want either. For years and years and years and years, I mean, you mentioned Bueller and Rodney White, that property had been open to local people to go up there and swim, and they've done so my whole life. I was born in Woodborough. I've lived in Ossipee since I was a little child. My whole life, people had access to go in there and swim. This is not a new phenomenon. What is new now is that Fish and Game bought it and imposed a rule to now not swim in a place where people had swam, I'm sure, for a whole lot before me. And I could have done it for 50 years. So this is not a new conversation. This is a very old conversation, which has now gotten nasty, and it shouldn't have to get nasty. I don't think on a regular basis, correct me if I'm wrong, you folks live up there, I don't think you've seen a whole bunch of people in there using that as a swimming hole. How often? How many?
On the weekend. Yesterday there were 15 people right at the boat launch and 2 dogs. With a bunch of inflatable toys.
We have pictures to prove.
The cookware and the whole thing.
They have chairs in the water, right where the boats are supposed to go.
Any nice weekend, they're there.
It's more use now that the input put in has been developed. The access is more facilitated, and because of the development, there are more people. I would say it's easier to get in. You know, for what it's worth, it helps the access for swimmers.
David Olean, the sanitary issues are something that should be paid attention to. New Hampshire lakes are degrading. The average clarity in all of New Hampshire's lakes have been degrading forever. It's because of overuse, motors, oil spills, poor hygiene or poor sanitary conditions, runoff from farms. There's a million things that happen to cause New Hampshire's water bodies to degrade. And this is common knowledge. One exception to that has been Connor Pond. Connor Pond is a unique environment where there's no farming around it, and the runoff into Connor Pond is pretty benign. The roads aren't heavily salted, the salt doesn't run in, the chlorophyll levels are very low. The clarity of the water is fairly stable, and I'd hate to see it degrade by having a bunch of people swimming and doing things that, I mean, we have to control what natural resources we have.
I don't disagree with that, with one exception. And I think that your argument about facilities is fine, but I think it's just as valid for fishermen as it is for swimmers. People who go up there, I mean, the point is very valid. I mean, somebody that goes up for the day and goes up there fishing.
I don't see fishermen peeing out of their boat.
You mean fishermen don't pee?
They usually bring a bottle.
Okay.
If you go right near that boat launch, there's little tufts of toilet paper everywhere. It's sort of...
Well, that sounds like a government issue, not a, it sounds like something the government needs to provide, whether it's the state or it's the city. Somebody's got to provide it, and it's going to happen, whether it's a sign or not.
But I'm just... The lack of facilities, I think, is just as wrong for not having for fishermen as it is for having for people using that property. The fact of the matter is, it is a permissible use to walk up there and fish right now. Would you agree?
Out of the boat launch.
Sure it is. It's permissible to fish at the boat launch.
You can? I didn't know that.
I believe it's completely permissible. You can't swim. You can stand up there, I mean, you could have 50 people a day going up there and casting out and fishing, and that's completely and totally legal, I believe.
Before I think I just broke the rules for fun with my kids, I actually called Fish and Game first to get the specifics on if I was allowed to swim at Connor Pond near the boat launch and how far. So the rule is that Fish and Game owns 197 feet or so, but you're allowed to swim 50 feet on either side of the boat launch. That's from Fish and Game. I didn't make that up. The actual conservation officer came to my home unannounced the Saturday after, and he said he didn't know what I was talking about either, and he said he did research, and I was correct, that I am, and you all are, allowed to swim on 50 feet on either side of that boat launch. The mean high water mark is where you enter the water, and that's where it becomes public water. Fish and Game no longer owns that water. And I called the Ossipee police, and they said as long as you park on the road, they're not going to give anyone a ticket as long as an emergency vehicle can pass. And Fish and Game also, when I spoke to them, they said that as long as you're not blocking the parking lot, don't block the parking lot. They want fishermen's boats to be able to park in the parking lot. That's like their thing. I don't know, canoers don't pay fees or anything, but they can park there anyway. Don't block the parking lot with swimmers or people not boating, I guess, and park on the road, and then you can walk up and use that facility. That was what Fish and Game said. So the no swimming sign seems like no swimming anywhere, but that's not actually the case.
Lynn Hart, Meredith, New Hampshire. And I acquired today a revised rule that was revised in June of this year for boat launches. And I'm not a lawyer, and my interpretation and the information that came with it contradicts what Ms. Williams is saying, that has changed, that there is no swimming allowed. As I said, I just acquired this today, and I'm not here to argue that, but I think it would be valuable to have a copy of those rules for the town that pertain to the facility in town. And you know, as I say, it was brought to my attention. It was just changed in June.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? And we're going to move into our...
As long as we don't argue over the shape of the table.
That's right.
Joy Gagnon, Ossipee. And I'm hearing a lot of people say that they live elsewhere and have property here. But for somebody who lives here year-round, this is a really difficult place to live. You know, we have really long winters. We have to drive really far to go to the store. It's very difficult to make a living in this town. And those of us who live here do it because we can swim in a beautiful river or a beautiful lake or pond or hike the mountains. And it doesn't really seem like it should be taken away. And I feel like this year definitely is the beach year that everybody would like to swim and everybody would like to be able to use Ossipee. So for those of you who don't know, it is a difficult place. We don't have a lifeguard. We don't have a big, beautiful beach. And it'd be nice to have more options.
And just for your information, having a lifeguard gives us more liability than not having a lifeguard.
Unfortunately.
We are better off without a lifeguard.
I just wanted to add one thing to her point where she said a lot of people had two places out of state. Well, I actually live in Florida now, but I was born here. I was born at the Huggins Hospital, and my mother was born here, and my grandfather and my great-grandfather was in the Civil War right from Center Ossipee. So
No, nobody, I hope nobody is suggesting that you don't care. If you didn't, you wouldn't be.
that's right.
Her point, though, is also well taken. In this, we're on the back end of, I'm sure many of you will know, what was a very, very spirited effort to finally gain a beach on Ossipee Lake, which we missed the 2/3 by 15 boats. A very, very strong majority, but we missed the 2/3. So the emotions on, I think, water access are probably as high right now as they have ever been for that reason. And the only thing I would tell everybody is to hold the phone. We're not done, and we're working on finally getting a beach on the lake. We'll see. So,
Are there other options? I mean, as Merrill Canada. Are there other options being considered?
there are.
Where are they?
I'm not at liberty to discuss at this point, but we are working on it. Okay? There's nothing else under this public input. Again, you'll have plenty of opportunity more to speak. I'd like to get into our business. We have the minutes of the Selectmen's work session and finance meeting, which occurred on Monday, July 2nd. I make a motion to accept them as printed.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It may seem like we blow through some of this stuff fairly fast, but we have all had a chance to review this independently before the meeting. And this is a this is the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Monday, July 2nd. I make a motion we accept them as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have the check voucher totals for payroll with benefits week ending 7/7 was $143,219.91. We had accounts payable for week ending 7/2 in the amount of $37,924.40 for a total dispersed that week of $181,192.40. $144.31. Additionally, we had accounts payable for the water and sewer, which we track separately, in the amount of $5,836.37. The check voucher totals for this week. Payroll week ending 7/14 was $45,127.61. We had accounts payable week ending 7/9 in the amount of $12,906.04. We dispersed to the 3 fire precincts $111,344 for a total dispersed this week of $169,377.65. Excuse me. We also had water and sewer accounts payable, which we track separately, in the amount of $4,472.43. I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For those who have not been here before, these are just the check voucher totals. There's a multi-tier review of every bill before it gets paid. It starts off with the department head who certifies that we received whatever it is that we're being billed for. They actually code the bill to the portion of their line item of their budget that it's to be paid from before it goes to finance. Once it's at finance, it comes to the Board of Selectmen, and we review and initial each and every bill as it comes in before it gets put into the voucher total. So there is a multi-tier review. We got notified by the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services. They did the water sampling at Duncan Lake Town Beach as well as at the Mill Pond, and both water samples came through as being cleaned to the levels as required by the state. We have a copy of a letter from the Town of Freedom Board of Selectmen. It's regarding to 3 issues that they had with our ambulance company. We are, many will remember, in a multi-town compact with an ambulance company. They had some issues with the ambulance company, and they carbon copied us those complaints. We have the quarterly Form 941, which is the quarterly federal return for our employee contributions. I make a motion, I sign it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have from the Board of Selectmen to the trustee of trust funds, and it's on the, please issue a check to the town of Ossipee in the amount of $800 for a cemetery lot refund. I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a notice of intent to cut wood or timber. This is on map 135, lot 24 and 25, and map 267, lot 3. They're on Route 171, 56 acres. It's owned by the Homestead Trust and Greenleaf Products as the logger. Taxes have been paid. I make a motion we approve it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a request for clerical abatement. This is on map 104, lot 14001, sub 021. This is a camper which is registered. We didn't receive a copy of the registration until after the tax bills went out. It results in a refund or abatement of $112. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a letter which was sent to me as chairman of the board from a Granite Apollo, and it's regarding, it says you're receiving this letter because we have identified your town as a potential fit for a large-scale solar project. Along with the benefits of solar power for ratepayers, there are significant long-term economic benefits for a host community as well. Evidently, this company has reached agreements with, I believe it was Webster and Hopkinton and Londonderry to do large-scale solar projects. It's here in the folder if anybody would like to look at it. We have a notice of intent to cut wood. This is on map 39-1, 41-17, and 209-2. It's on Pine Hill Road. It's a 400-acre property. They're proposing to cut 30 acres. Eisenhower?
Eisenhower,
Eisenhower
UNH.
is the owner, and Larry, the land use coordinator, Kingman Farm. The logger is Larry Bolstridge. Taxes have been paid. I make a motion we approve. All in favor?
Aye.
A contract for use of facilities, the Historical Society, for the annual meeting, they use Town Hall on October 20th. The schedule's been okayed by Craig. They've paid the deposit. I make a motion we approve. All in favor? Aye. To the Board of Selectmen, and this is enclosed, you have an application to enroll map 227 lot 22 in current use in its entirety. The application was received on May 25th, which is after the filing deadline of April 15th. The gentleman who submitted this request has since passed away. They were asking us to allow this to be filed under the accident, mistake, or misfortune clause of RSA 79A52. As I said, the applicant has since passed away, but his estate wants the application to proceed as originally planned. Our assessors attached the necessary information. This action is at your discretion. Did you all get a chance to read this?
Yes.
Any thoughts?
No. When did he pass this? When did he pass away? He signed it. When did he sign it?
He signed it back at the end of May.
It's since passed away.
He has passed away, and the assessor says that his estate wants it to proceed, but I don't see anything from the estate.
I didn't know.
I'm going to suggest that it's not appropriate for us to do unless we have some sort of a request in writing from his estate, and then I guess we can address it.
That's right.
Agree with that?
Give them the opportunity to bring it in.
Okay. So Ellen, will you take care of notifying them, please? We have a petition and poll license. This is from Consolidated Communications. It's for installation of telephone poles in the area of Doors Corner Road. And it's New Hampshire Electric Co-op that's doing it. I make a motion to approve it.
It's Consolidated or New Hampshire?
New Hampshire, New England. That's Consolidated Communications.
Which is the phone.
But it's-
Consolidated is fair.
But the phones are all, poles are owned by New Hampshire Electric Co-op.
Got it.
I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It's the same one, there's just 3 copies of it. We have a letter from the Department of Revenue Administration. It's one we have to file every year. We just have to notify them that we will not be using the PA 28 form in 2019, which are the old taxable inventory forms. We haven't used them in some time. I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. You have the Highway Department work log, which is here in the folder for anybody to look at if you would like. We have a letter, which is not yet signed, but I presume will be, from the Board of Selectmen from the town of Wilkesboro. It's dated July 2nd. Dear Board of Selectmen, thank you for your letter of June 11th, 2018. The Wilkesboro Board of Selectmen discussed your concerns at the June 27th, 2018 meeting. As we understand it, you are asking the Wilkesboro Board of Selectmen if the Wilkesboro Board of Selectmen is in favor of establishing a budget committee with representation from each town within the school district to provide financial oversight of the school budgeting process. The consensus of this board is that there exists ample opportunity for voters to actively participate in the school budgeting process presently without the need to form a separate committee. If such a committee were formed, it would be purely an advisory committee without the power to affect the process or the actual budget. With regard to ever-increasing school tax rates, this is a concern to us as well. However, this board feels that the school tax rate formula is largely beyond our control and is greatly affected by school census, state aid, and other factors as set by the New Hampshire legislature. While we are equally concerned with the present state of affairs, it is not within the purview of the duties of the Board of Selectmen to intervene in school matters. We are willing to meet with all town selectmen and the Governor Wentworth School District Finance Committee to discuss the budget. Please let us know if that is agreeable. As well as we did get the signed copy of the letter from the town of Tuftonboro. Thank you for your letter dated June 11th in regards to forming a multi-town budget committee. It is our understanding that the School Board Finance Committee will be putting together a session with their budget committee and members of their towns to discuss the budget process as well as the existing cooperative funding formula. At this time, we feel that this would be an appropriate way to start discussions. Not sure what that means. Moving right along. We'll discuss that, I would presume, at some point again. We have a copy of a check we received from Northeast Recovery. This is for scrap metal. We received $525.68. We have a copy of our current budget status, which we've been reviewing. The budget is in excellent shape. We have right now 50.61% of the budget remaining, and I believe trying to find where the percentage of the remaining year is.
Last page right at the end. Oh, you just had it. So you just should be.
Yeah, what we've got remaining is 50.61.
Should be. Used to be right on the page.
Thought we had it right here someplace. And anyway, we got less year left than we've got money, which is always a good thing to be on the right side of it. I'll find it the next week. We had a letter from the Attorney General's office regarding trustee of trust funds, library trustees, and cemetery trustees. Terry Knowles, who was a long-time occupant at the Attorney General's office charitable trust, is retired, and they have set up to continue the training that Terry used to do through the New Hampshire Municipal Association. That's been sent out to all the different boards. We have a letter from the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and this is regarding vegetation trimming. In the recent month, you've seen New Hampshire Electric Co-op actively along Doors Corner Road, Moultonville, and Thurley Road. They'll be upgrading and installing replacement poles. Those are what we just approved. And the new poles to extend our electric circuit through Eversource territory. Currently, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op electric circuit has two open points, one near number 99 Doors Corner and the other near number 21 Thurley Road. The plan is to install our circuit along new Eversource poles to close the open point to better serve your friends and neighbors. So that's just an explanation of the work that they're doing up there. We have a letter which we received. Read it quickly. From Martin Levitt, a previous member of the Board of Selectmen. Knowing that being a selectman can be difficult at times, I am reluctant to oppose or question town policy and the manner in which business is conducted. I make an exception with this letter which suggests that discontinuing transfer and recycling fees could be a major mistake. It certainly comes as no surprise that many would prefer unlimited access at no charge and the ability to dispose of trash without restrictions. In my opinion, the transfer station would be overloaded with tires and electronic items, and the town costs would escalate dramatically. At present, as you know, the town allows 2 days each year for unlimited trash disposal, Earth Day and fall cleanup. Adding 1 or 2 more dumping days could well cost the town an additional $15,000 to $30,000. Contrary to comments in the past, rest assured that those individuals inclined to dispose of their trash alongside the highway or in the woods will continue to do so. There is no logical reason that the transfer station should be required to fund their operation by virtual, I'm not sure what that means, of real estate taxation. I would point out that non-resident vacationists contribute to transfer department income, helping to reduce costs. Ossipee residents who rent their living quarters would get a free ride. Should the cost of operations be added to Ossipee real estate owners, taxes would obviously increase. While said increase would be relatively small per thousand, I would suggest looking back over tax years. Tax increases during the past 10 years or so would indicate a substantial increase to the average taxpayer. Taxes in the town of Ossipee are not minimal. The town has operated a very efficient transfer station for many years with no major complaints from the general public. And speaking with Public Works Director Brad Ehrman, also Bruce DeVitt, both are opposed to a change in policy which allows an open disposal program with no charge. Local contractors may well bring trash to the station which emanates from other towns. The employees would be overwhelmed by trash entering their facility each day without restriction. And he quotes Yogi Berra, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that's from Martin Levitt. Only a couple of things I'd comment real quickly on his letter. I respect his opinion. He's a great guy. We have not decided to abolish the fees at the dump. It's something that we have been discussing. I would also point out, as far as the tax increases over the last 10 years, I would point everybody to look at what we were discussing a couple of minutes ago, which is the school funding formula. The town portion of your tax rate has gone down 68 cents a thousand over the last 4 years. So the amount of what it would increase currently, last year they collected about $70,000 in fees, and that includes the recycling, which we're never proposing to stop, I hope. So the impact of $30,000 or $40,000 in what people are paying in their Ossipee tax rate, I don't believe would even be felt. So that being said, we also have been looking to issue again the Boston Post cane, which for many of you will remember, it's a tradition started a long, long time ago of issuing the Boston Post cane to the town's oldest resident. And in an effort to do that, we've been asking for people to let us know of anybody and who may in fact need the qualifier for that. We do have one who actually turned 104 yesterday. So if anybody knows anybody in the town of Ossipee who's older than 104 as of yesterday, please let us know immediately.
Harry Merritt's still out?
He's out. Yeah. he's going to be in the running at some point. Excuse me. But it is, in all sincerity, it's a wonderful honor. We've been able to now purchase a replica of the cane rather than giving the cane itself, so that in that regard it doesn't have to be returned and it can be kept for the family, and I think it's a pretty neat thing. So I would like to make a decision on this by next Monday. I don't see any reason why we can't. I don't think there's going to be many more nominations that beat 104.
No, but Myrtle White should be coming up. She's going to be 102.
She is. We actually thought she was it, and she's got beat. There's actually somebody that's almost 2 years older, so thank you. So that, I would like to get that acted on next week and get it done. At 104, I don't think we should be wasting anybody's time. We have a notice of decision, and this was from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. This is regarding case number 18-9-B, Russell Manette and Elsa McKay. They were granted a variance. It's here in the folder if anybody would like to look at it or comment on it. We have a payroll reimbursement request from the Water and Sewer Department in the amount of $3,644.57. I make a motion we sign it. All in favor? Aye. Aye. We have a water and sewer warrant for the tax collector to collect $80. I make a motion we sign it. All in favor? Aye. We have an abatement. This is Water and Sewer Department. This is a misreading with the handheld unit. Need to correct for the next billing cycle. The reading was 29,380, should have been 24,345. Results in a refund or abatement of $77.69. Water and sewer superintendent recommends that we grant it. I make a motion we approve it. All in favor? Aye. We have a water and sewer abatement application. This is from 20 Birch Tree Lane. The reason for the request is that they have gardens and livestock to take water but not use sewer, for 2 dogs and a cat, 14 chickens. They're asking to have $5,000, 5,000 gallons of sewer abated, which would result in an abatement of $47.70. The water and sewer superintendent does not agree and recommends that we deny it. We do not have the ability to meter the sewer system. The sewer bill is based on the water consumption. My fear is there are 350 customers on the water system. If we start abating based on how many dogs, cats, and chickens they have, we will never. I'm going to make a motion that we deny the abatement.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I don't know how that would even remotely be workable. We have a water and sewer warrant instructing the tax collector to collect $7,608. I make a motion we sign it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we have a copy of the consent calendar from the Executive Council, which is here in the folder if anybody would like to read it. Brad Harriman, our Public Works Director, is on vacation, so we do not, I don't expect we'll have an update on 171, the sidewalks, or the covered bridge. The town beach on Duncan Lake, there was some work done on it a week ago by the Highway Department. Really spruced it up a lot. We've got the Public Works Director getting the DES permit to haul in some clean wash sand to help improve the beach down there a little bit. We talked a few minutes ago about the windows on the Ossipee Mountains property. We put that out, so that should take care of that. The Boston Post cane, again, I'd like to decide on that next Monday and get that issued. The School District Budget Committee request. We sent out a letter to all of the other boards of selectmen for the people who have, for the towns that have students in our school district, and asking if they were in favor of establishing a budget committee made up of one person elected from each town to do a more thorough budget review of the Governor Regional School District budget. I can't say that I'm shocked. I don't want to sound nasty, but I'm not surprised that of the 6 towns that Wilkesboro and Tuftonboro didn't seem to want to. The other towns, I believe, all want to. Where that goes from here, I have no idea. What happened this year, as an example, and this is not the first time, but the amount of Ossipee money this year to the Governor Wentworth School District went up $900,000. Went up $900,000. We now send $8.4 million a year to the Governor Wentworth School District, and I'm not saying that that's not 100% justified. What I am saying is it becomes very confusing and very, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of parity. The school district budget went up this year $1.5 million. There are 6 towns. Ossipee's portion of that $1.5 million was $900,000. And that is based primarily on the funding formula. The funding formula for our school district is based 75% based on your average daily attendance and then 25% on the equalized evaluation of each town. So what happens depending on what enrollments are doing in the other towns, is that a small town like Ossipee can end up getting hit with the lion's share of the increase, which is what happened this year. I mentioned in my comments on the issue of the dump, we collectively, this board, our budget committee, the townspeople, the town meeting, have worked really, really hard over the last 4 years to cut the town tax rate by 68 cents a thousand. And yet this year, for all that effort, your school tax rate went up $1.33 per thousand this year alone. And in one fell swoop, that your tax bill went up more than twice what it's taken us 4 years to reduce. That's where the frustration comes from. The funding formula is something that Ed Comeau, is one of our elected representatives, has tried and is continuing, I believe, to try to address. It needs to be addressed. We are not alone. We are a minor voice in a major school district, and the sad but true fact is that even given that scenario, if every single person in the town of Ossipee voted no, it would still be passed by the district as a whole. It seems to me the Boston Tea Party was about pennies, and now we're talking about millions. So I hope this is not at the end of the conversation. I hope this is the start.
You didn't start public comment, but can I add?
Please.
To get detail, well, just for the record, Ed Comeau represents Brookfield, Wakefield, Ossipee, and Effingham. What I did is, everybody was complaining about their school taxes for years. So I looked at the way the county apportions their taxes, and you add up to the town and how much their evaluation is, and then you're taxed accordingly. So no matter how many people you send to the nursing home or the jail, you're still paying from that amount. So I thought, why don't we just use equalized valuation? I put that bill in, and it was crushed, crushed by New Hampshire School Board Association. The school board itself, their administrator came into and testified against it. And they said if they want to change the formula, then they should put a warrant article in and change it. Now, there's good news to this. I've spoken personally to the Effingham Selectmen. They're very willing to have that, at least the conversation, the meeting. Brookfield is definitely on board. And I go to New Durham on Monday morning to ask them. And they also have said, I believe in letter form, that they would be interested in doing it. This is how it starts. Just like with the Connor Pond issue, we got to go back to talking, because people are going to go to the lawyers, they're going to make all the money, and then we're done. So instead of just forgetting about it, even if I don't get reelected, hand it off to the next guy. And even if that guy won't do it, or girl, then as a citizen, you could put legislation in if you think a different way is fair. So I think it's important that we meet, and I'm going to try to, everybody's asking, you will definitely meet, but we need a time and a place. So we'll figure that out hopefully by next week. Maybe we can have it right here.
It certainly,
It's
certainly open if you would like that.
Yes.
I would love it. And I just want to say, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm glad we're at least having the conversation. See what happens.
Listen, at minimum, if, now, they refer to Tuftonboro and Wolfboro as property-rich towns. Wolfboro, I believe, has almost a $4 billion valuation. That's a lot of money. So when the school budget goes up, they don't feel that.
No, they don't.
We feel it.
Yeah.
That funding formula, I don't know if you know this, but the funding formula was agreed to when it was formed, the school board was formed, the district was formed in 1963. The agreement is in the minutes of the meeting. So I really don't know even how legal it is, and I've said that before, but we should ask those questions. So I think we should follow up with that and meet. And about Connor Pond, I just wanted to know, I want you to know that I also record the Fish and Game Commission meetings. It's early enough now because the next meeting they have down in Concord, 11 Hazen Drive, is August 18th. If you call and get on the agenda, you'll have all the time in the world to talk about it. Maybe at that point, after the meeting, maybe you can introduce it in the beginning of the meeting, and then after the meeting, maybe there could be other meetings set up where all the parties can talk about this. Because if you look at the sign, I looked at the photographs I took of the Connor Pond sign, it looks very confusing to me. It says no swimming, but the information says that you cannot be denied. So it sounds like there's just, the sign actually says no swimming, but the law says you can't be denied access. So it sounds like we're having a problem with definitions here, more than anything. So perhaps if we can't work something out down in Concord, maybe then we can use legislation to correct it. Because when I looked at it, my interpretation was that Fish and Game didn't want people in the boat ramp swimming. That technically you can go anywhere you want. And I believe the story was that you were told that you can launch your boat, go out in the middle of the lake, and swim where you want. So there's a confusion here, what's right and what's not. So instead of doing nothing, I think we can start talking first, just like with the school board, and we can then move on to legislation if we need it.
Thank you, and again, I don't know where that'll go, but I'm glad we're starting the conversation on the school district. It is an enormous amount of money. There are some months when our school payment exceeds $1.5 million a month. It's a huge amount of money. I'm not, listen, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it again, I'm not shooting at our school board in any way, shape, or form. These are good people who care very much for their children and put in a heck of a lot of time and effort. What I am saying, and what I know to be true, based on what we've done here, is you cannot reduce taxes without really, really working at it. And it takes a combined effort. It's not just this Board of Selectmen. We have a budget committee. We have responsible department heads, and it takes a real effort to cut them. I also believe wholeheartedly, if we can do it here, others can do it as well. It takes a commitment to doing it, and I don't know that I see that commitment, and I don't know that the school board has the time to commit to doing that kind of budget review, but I guess we'll see where it goes. The last thing I have on the agenda under all business is the Condor Pond boat ramp. Is there anybody that wants to have other comment? And it seems like we kind of beat that to death from the beginning of the meeting.
I just wanted to point out that we live within, was it 80 feet? 80 feet of that boat launch area. So when people come and go, we hear it. I mean, the acoustics up there are just incredible. A lot of people just, yell out because they like to hear the echo going around. But the noise just drives us crazy. It really does, with the dogs barking, the people yelling, and the swearing. And this isn't just the day kids, it's the night crew too, that come in, and the teenagers, and you can tell they've been drinking, and they're acting up and causing a big mess. But yeah.
We all live with some sort of noise. I live with some also. Swearing, shooting,
It's awful, yeah.
and I live in the woods.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So whether I like it or not, it's there.
Yeah, but, we come so far to have our peace and quiet, and when it's quiet, it's gorgeous,
Yep.
It's absolutely beautiful. But there's not even like sometimes a half an hour in between the groups that come. And the other thing was the parking. They park wherever they want, and it says the designated spots, handicap parking. Doesn't make a difference to whoever shows up. They just park where they want. Yeah, it's a tough situation.
Jim Rhines, I live at 40 Corner Pond Road, and I don't have any problem with people having access to the pond at all. I think some of the video that I've seen and stuff, but we had 1,200 and some odd feet of frontage. Now we've sold some of it off, and we've got 850 feet of frontage. But every year at the end of the season, I pick up a garbage bag full of dirty diapers, people coming onto the property to do their business because they come up all day long, beer cans, soda cans. So if absolutely no problem with them using the property, the pond. No, I mean, I have no control of it, but I'm not opposed to it, and the squeal's a delight, and people playing. Yeah, the language is the language, and It's just the way society is today, I guess, but it's the trash and disrespect of the property owners is really the only issue that I have, so.
I appreciate that.
Lynn Hart, Meredith, New Hampshire. And I'm just wondering, in your letter to the Fish and Game Department, are you, one, taking a position on whether that you support making a swimming beach out of Connor Pond? And two, will you be expressing any concern about a lack of disposal facilities for both fishermen and swimmers, as you mentioned earlier this afternoon?
I don't have any opposition to adding that. Let me tell you what it was that we actually sent to them. I want to read what we sent to them in 2014. We sent them a letter dated August 11, 2014, and it's to Garrett Grasscamp. He's the coordinator at Fish and Game. And we are writing to request reconsideration of the swimming restriction that has been placed at the car top boat launch at Connor Pond in Ossipee. This location has been used for many years as a swimming area for many residents and visitors to the area, and would be ashamed to lose this privilege. The consideration of this request is greatly appreciated. And that was signed by myself, at the time Robert Freeman and Frank Riley. We received a letter back from them in August, basically quoting the rule and that swimming is not permitted in any boat launch controlled by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department. The letter that we had agreed last week was to send to them is virtually exactly the same thing we sent to them in 2014, which is we are writing to follow up on our request from August 11, 2014, requesting reconsideration of the swimming restriction that has been placed at the car top boat launch at Connor Pond in Ossipee under Administrative Law FIS 1602.01. Motorized boat access is not allowed in this pond, which greatly reduces the risk of injury from swimming in the area of the boat launch. This location has been used for many years as a swimming area for many residents and visitors to the area, and would be ashamed to lose this privilege. Virtually exactly what we sent to them in 2014. I don't have an opposition to adding to it the issue of the refuge. Listen, and again, whether we're talking about Ossipee Lake, whether we're talking about Connor Pond, whether we're talking about White Pond, I certainly want people to use those areas responsibly. I want them to be respectful of the neighbors. I want them to take the trash with them that they bring. We all know that that is not always going to happen. We see it every day. We have now somebody assigned to go down to Duncan Lake Down Beach every day to pick up trash that people leave there. That's the unfortunate truth of it. I don't know what Fish and Game's ability is to do trash removal.
It's carried out in the state.
It's supposed to be, but I mean, so's ours, but you know, that doesn't work.
The gentleman showed up this morning, he does the mowing and everything, and he's responsible for picking up things
How often does he do that?
once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah, but he doesn't get everything, because a lot of them throw their beer bottles and cans on our property, you know, because we're less than there to here on our property line, you know, it's.
A couple questions. Are there any trash barrels there at all now?
No.
Okay, so
They're not gonna put them in.
Yeah, I don't.
if you don't have trash barrels, that's an important issue that needs to be addressed. And the same with the sanitation facilities. Are there any there now? No, I can already tell you that. What are we going to do about that? It's just going to go on and on and on for years, and is there any prospect of that happening? Trash, and is it going to be back and forth between Ossipee and the state Ossipee for another 3-4 years?
It's not really, quite frankly, a case of going back and forth. It's not our property. We can't go up there and put trash barrels on it. We can't go up and put sanitary, that's not our property.
So have you asked them?
Let me finish. We have started this discussion after this young lady came in this time. She's not the first. As I said, we did this back in 2014 when we had some requests. I think it is our job as the Board of Selectmen, when residents come in with a complaint that involves a state agency, to follow it up with that state agency. It's still the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department that owns this property and is responsible for its management. I fully expect, I'll be very honest with you, to get back a response very much like we got in 2014. It says, our rules say that there's no swimming. Then the process for that is exactly what Mr. Comeau said. You want to change the rule, it's an administrative rule by Fish and Game, go talk to Fish and Game. We can't change it for you.
Besides the swimming, have you asked them to put trash barrels there and facilities there? And can we, and will you? Why not? I mean, why don't we say, hey, we need some facilities there, we need some trash barrels? And, I mean, this bureaucratic thing could go back and forth, and it's still happening. Who's going to step up to the plate and say, we need, and tell them, or call them on the phone, say, hey, let's get with it. We need facilities there, and we need trash there. And let's do it.
Would you like that in our backyard?
Hold on.
What's that?
No talking back and forth. What I would suggest is, in all fairness, is you get on, right, or call the Fish and Game Department. It is truly them who is responsible for that property. I mean, it's not that I'm trying to shirk our responsibilities. I'm just simply saying that isn't one of them.
Are you going to do that also? Are you going to call on the phone and ask them to put some things in?
I'm going to suggest that we include it in the letter that we're going to send to them, and suggest to them that they take a look at, and that we've received complaints from neighbors regarding trash and refuse in facilities. And then, again, let them address it.
So they haven't been asked that yet, so far?
Not by us.
Them to put any facilities in?
Not by us. Not by
Well,
us.
maybe it's about time. Let's ask them and tell them to get with it.
Joe?
Can I just make a point?
Yep.
And my name is Joe. Joe Deegan. I live in Center Ossipee. What I'm seeing here, and I've seen this in all different things, we have a point of contention going between people that want to and can use the water, and we have people that live there. What I would strongly suggest, because what happens in this situation is it's not the town can help, but ultimately it's up to you guys to work it out. Because that's what's you're either gonna work it out yourself, or something's going to, the pendulum's gonna change, and you're either gonna agree or not agree, and that's the way you're gonna live with it when it ends up, both parties. Someone's gonna like it, someone's not gonna like it. It would be great if there was a way that you could come up with a way to figure it out. The water is owned by the state. You have the right to put your docks out there. But if anybody goes, you may, whether you know this or not, anybody that you may use that dock and you can tie to it, but if someone's sitting in that dock and not touching it, they can sit there all day long and you can't do anything about it. So that's just things you got to think about. When you live on the water, you have to share that. You got to take some responsibility in doing that. As far as the sound, there's I think it's 10 o'clock at night when it has to be quiet. It's a certain extent. I mean, it can't be crazy sound all day long, but you're going to have people swimming and whatever. It's just going to be what it is.
We live in a society that has a whole lot of rules. Then you get the issue of administrative rules and being given the same strength and force of law, and that's something that I'm sure Ed will spend 3 hours talking about. The thing that becomes ridiculous to me, and then you get into this issue of definitions. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, somebody can take an inflatable boat, blow it up, walk that boat into the water, and then completely and totally legally swim there. Now, if that is true, that seems to me to be a ludicrous requirement. That's all I'm saying. You know, again, it's not ours. I fully support you folks having an opportunity to come here and vent to us. We're simply asking Fish and Game to look at it. If it is their conclusion that it continue to be no swimming, it is for them to defend and do whatever. If that means they give this young lady a ticket, then she gets a ticket and we'll do whatever with it. It's not here. We're glad to provide this conduit for you folks to talk. That, quite frankly, is as far as we are even able to go. It's not our property.
Is the no swimming just at the boat launch?
Well, that again is debatable. Right now it says no swimming on the property, but I don't know if the law requires on either side of the boat ramp.
Fish and Game, their jurisdiction is the boat access ramp, and that's it. The natural mean high water mark is where the water comes up, and they do not own that. They own 50 feet on, they own the frontage on either side, they do not own the water.
But does it say no swimming allowed, or does it just say no swimming?
It says no swimming. It's very vague, insinuates, they don't even define swimming in their own rules.
Swimming. You can't swim on the land. You gotta swim on the water.
Okay, hold on. No. If you want to comment, please make it to us. I just don't want to see this individually. Okay?
Last thing I have to say. I think that the access to Connor Pond with Fish and Game acquiring the land has provided access for people forever. Prior to the private party that owned it, that was extremely generous about allowing people to swim, allowing local people to swim and to launch their boat. So the state is providing access to all of us, to you, to me, to everyone here. And the way I see it, and it would be very helpful to have this meeting with Fish and Game, is that they are managing what type of access that the public can have to the public water. And I think that has been lost in this discussion. It's not about denying you the ability to use the water, it's managing the type of access to it. And we see those issues all over the state of New Hampshire right now. You can go to Diana's Baths, you can try to hike Franconia Ridge and Franconia Notch. We all love the outdoors, we all want our little piece of it. How do we manage it? And I think this is what those rules that we're all talking about, I'm not having anyone here from Fish and Game to define for us, so it leaves us to interpreting it ourselves. That's what we're talking about, access, public access. And I thank you for encouraging us to get information from Fish and Game about this, because none of us are, know anything.
The last thing I want to say on this, and one of the things that I think happens too, and one of the problems become, and the state is notoriously famous for this, and that is to paint everything with one brush. And that gets very, very difficult. And I understand why they want to do that. But I think the issue of car top launches needs to be looked at in a different regard than a motorboat launch. I think that's just common sense. Now, does that mean I think there ought to be swimming at the car top? I'm not even going there. I'm saying that I think, though, that in fairness, the rules need to be different and should not try to paint everything with one brush. I think at that point, you sometimes end up with some crazy rules. Yeah.
A little bit apart from this question of managing access is...
Just have your name, please, I'm sorry.
Oh, Emily Robertson,
Okay.
And our family have a property, and I'm speaking on behalf of our family, and I think people, all interested parties who use the pond in any way. And that is, now that the state has bought this access point, can we as public, as the public come to you as selectmen to advocate for us, and it sounds like we can, and that there's a channel to the state, and hold the state as owners of the land to some standard that I know that we as homeowners and property owners in the community have always been held to as far as sewage in the pond and noise. Shooting, I know there is no, there's a bylaw, you can shoot, there's no redress for that noise, but it stops at dark. Well, anyway, it's a little harder to shoot in the dark.
If what I'm hearing you say, and my answer would be yes, that we can be a conduit between you folks and the state, albeit understand that it is not our property. We will gladly, as we have agreed to do when this lady came in, we will gladly be a conduit between you folks and the state. Ed is here every week recording the meetings, and he happens to be one of our state reps. So there are avenues to be able to do that. As far as holding the state to the same standard, I absolutely agree they should be. It should be.
Just that precisely.
It should
I
be.
think we did so much work when the public access program came to the pond. And it is, you know, it's definitely federal that we're also dealing with, I think, you know, in some measure. There was a huge amount of input into how it would be managed, and certainly fecal matter was a big one. Everybody put their hands up on that. And we are not allowed to poop where we like. And it is a question of state stewardship. And just, I think we can all work together on that. Please, you know, as, you know, Fish and Game, you are the steward, so do, you know, step up to the plate in that respect. I mean, I think we all would like to, you know, not have diapers. I don't think people necessarily want to swim there with their diapers and there's broken glass or launch their boats, but there is no where to put that waste. And that at least is a bottom line thing that they have to be stewards of. And we can go to them and please include it in your letter.
So that's only the swimmers that are doing that?
No, this is absolutely not a swimmer versus boating issue, and it's not a community versus homeowners issue, and it's I think for all of us as a community to say, you know, as a state, can you just do that basic stewardship for you know, boat ramp access people or swimmers, anybody who uses it.
Somebody has something new on this, Jake?
Yeah. David Tanner, I'm a Connor Pond resident, part-time though, and have been since early 70s. So we spent a lot of time on Connor Pond. Someone talked about, we don't live here year-round, but we spend half a year here, and we feel very responsible and respectful for the pond. And when we all found out that the state of New Hampshire, Department of Fish and Game, was buying a parcel of land for the purpose of putting in a boat ramp, we realized that we could immediately have ski-doos, water skiing, and jet boats running around the pond. And that is not how the pond had historically been used. It was a quiet pond. There were fishermen trolling slowly around, not making waves which lap against the shore, causing erosion and the trees fall in. So we didn't want petroleum engines, no speed greater than headway speed, which is just slow, no wake. So we got together, we all worked together as a community and petitioned the state to have no petroleum engines. No petroleum engines. Engines are allowed. Solar power, if they ever get developed, electric engines, they all have propellers. And I think in your letter, you made a comment about no motorized, and maybe you want to change that to no petroleum engines, because electric engines are still allowed. And I believe at the launch, there are 2 spots for trailers. So those trailers, unless they've taken them out, that's the way we all agreed when we met with Fish and Game years ago. We got them to restrict it from 15 or 20 parking spots to 7 or 8 that are there now. We tried to tone it down. We got them to put in a gray ramp instead of a white ramp. We got them to rebuild the shoreline, plantings that had been eroded away by people swimming there and people putting just boats in randomly. So we tried to control it a little bit and work with the state, and they agreed with us. So I think what everybody is saying now is we'd like to, we all worked hard to keep that way. And we just like to keep it that way, for, you know, for everybody to use. So if you want to bring a boat, go swimming off the boat, I guess that's okay. But, so you might want to look at your statement about no motorized, because they're still allowed, just electric.
Anybody else have anything to do?
Just wondering if there's other facilities like this, other boat ramps that have trash and or other kinds of facilities. If there are, that's a precedent. No. Other managed by the state, other boat ramps, are there other boat ramps that have facilities out there? Trash pickup, that would be a precedent that we could say, well, this area, this area, this area, you pick up the trash, we'd like to add our area to that.
I have no idea.
Does anybody know?
What you could, if you do go to the Fish and Game Commission meeting, they have an attorney there. And if you're on the agenda, you can ask anything you want. So you can have that answered professionally and, you know, you can get the right answer.
All right, as of tonight, I'm going to suggest that we have the town administrator redo the letter and include that we have received complaints from the residents regarding the lack of trash receptacles, and I would assume a porta potty would be the only way that you could address it. Okay. And then we'll address it. We'll sign that next Monday. That's all we'll do.
Do you want me to correct the motorized
Sure.
statement as well?
Sure. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
What would stop any landowner up there from putting their own garbage can there?
Nothing. Nothing. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if, you know, Fish and Game probably is not gonna wanna do it because they're.
Well, I know they're not gonna wanna do it, because then they're gonna have somebody go up there and pick it up,
Yeah,
so.
I'm saying- Maybe they would
Go
agree.
ahead.
Maybe you should do it.
Fish and Game has said that private individuals cannot do anything at the boat launch. It's not allowed.
I get that, but I think what he's saying is, I don't think you'll find, anybody would ever have a problem with picking up trash. Is what it is.
We do? We do pick up trash. Sorry.
Pick it up all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you have anything else on the public hearing? Okay, do you have anything? You just have business?
No.
Okay. You sit here all meeting? God bless you.
I've never been this quiet.
Anything else on the full business or new business? We don't have, we've taken care of the tax matter. We don't have anything else? Ed, did you have anything you need to update us on? If not, I make a motion we adjourn. All in favor? Thank you.